Hello everyone, welcome back to another day of the Analyst. This is for 25th of November 2023, where we will be trying to understand the most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. Now, looking at the table of contents, the very first article is about the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code of India and a recent report by CRISIL's rating on the same. Next, we will be trying to understand the various contours of the India-Afghanistan relations because recently the Kabul embassy in New Delhi shut down. Next, we will be trying to understand an editorial that came in the Hindu regarding climate smart agriculture and the various concepts related to this. In the next one, we will be looking at two science and technology developments, one that is related to CRISPR technology, the another that is related to laser that is fired by NASA. In the final article, we will be trying to understand what are mangroves and how they help in the carbon capture from the atmosphere. Now the very first article is regarding the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code of India because we are getting a new report from CRISIL's rating where it is telling that the performance of the IBC has been mixed. Now before going on to the very details of the same, let us again start with the basics. Now before starting with the basics, let me tell you it is very important from the GS3 perspective where we have the various aspects of Indian economy. Okay, now we have two terms here, insolvency and bankruptcy. The two terms are very different, but let me explain you through a very simple example. Suppose you want to set up an ice cream shop and you are an aspiring entrepreneur and you want to establish one ice cream shop here. For example, this shop is costing you to set up around say 10 crore because out of this 10 crore you need to rent out a land, you need to hire workers, you need to buy raw materials. So you calculated that in the very first year it will be coming to around say 10 crores. Now you do not, for example, want to have your own money invested, so you go to a bank and you borrow the money from the same, right? Now your bank is loaning you the money, or indirectly it is also becoming a part of your business because at the end of every month or say at the end of every quarter or at the end of every year you have to pay back say the principal amount in say installments or say even the interest. Now this loan is very functioning for the beneficial of your business. Now here, for example, say after a period of time or after say a period of 1 year, you are seeing that your business is not performing very well. For example, say you are not selling enough ice creams. So you think that right now, instead of wasting my time in this ice cream business, let me set up another bookstore where I will be selling say books or I will be selling various other associated stationery items and so on. Now you say that I am already invested in this business, existing ice cream business, and I do not have enough funds of myself, and also the bank has given me the loan on this earlier business of mine in this ice cream industry. Now if I go to the bank for another loan, will the bank be very encouraging on the side to give me another fresh loan? I don't think so, right? And even I presume that you all do not think the same. That is why we have to understand the ease of doing business in India or say in every part of the world is very important. If you are operating a certain business right now and you see that you are on the verge of insolvency or where you are not able to return back the financial obligation you owe to your creditors right now. So you are not in that mindset or you are not in that financial capacity to deliver on the financial obligation that you are due. That is a state of insolvency. Now when the company or say when you as an ice cream industry company will be filing for bankruptcy, it means that you are officially declaring that you are not in a state to pay back the business, and the banks or any other creditors who had lent you money, who had lent you say employees or who had lent you the raw materials, they will be liable to claim back the property of your company. They will be able to sell it back to say recover their own say loan or say their own expenditures in your business. So your benefit is that you will be readily freed of all the obligations instantly and you can look to setting up a new business. On the other side, the other stakeholders such as the creditors, they will be very happy because they will be able to take back or say get back the money that they lent to you by selling off your assets of the business. So this is the very simple way of insolvency and bankruptcy. And before 2015-16, there was no codified structure of insolvency bankruptcy provisions in India. For example, say nations like Singapore, they have a very well-oiled structure of insolvency bankruptcy code wherein new businesses can set up and they can exit the business say within a year. It is so fast, that means the government, the private institutions, the banks, they operate in a seamless manner as to make the business very easy to start and also very easy to quit. This is actually very beneficial for the economy in the long run, especially at a time when we are seeing the growth of startups in India. Right? Now the startups, they are very precarious and very risky in the initial stages, but when they grow over a period of time, we are getting good returns from the startups. But in the very initial stages, which is also known as the death value of the startups, it becomes very important for them to get into the business quickly and get out of the business very quickly and set up a new business, which is good for the economy by providing more and more employment, exports and so on. Now, let us come back to the IBC provisions. The very first thing that the IBC Code of 2016 established was the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India. It is a statutory body. Let me tell you the very theoretical aspects of the same. It is implementing the IBC 2016 under the Ministry of Commerce in India. So these are the information which are very important for the prelims. Now the constitution of this board is that it will be having one chairman, one member from the RBI and 8 Government of India nominees. Here, it is very important to note that not only the government is on the board, the RBI is also there, and most often the chairman is one prominent industrial member too. Then it is selecting the insolvency professional agencies. Now remember the example that I gave you, that the very first thing that you are setting up a business, you are looking at the creditors. If you are not able to give back your financial obligations or say loan back to the creditors, say the bank here, now there must be an intermediary between you and your bank who are experienced chartered accountants or say financial experts who knows your business in and out by say studying your business reports, and also they have good links and networks with the banking institutions also, so that the intermediary, that is these insolvency professional agencies, they can operate the total insolvency and bankruptcy procedure. So these are these agencies who are enrolling and say supervising the insolvency professionals. These are those experienced CA or say CA firms, and even some in cases some say commercial lawyers, corporate lawyers. So these are all the professionals here. And in addition, the Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, they will also be selecting the information utility, which will be acting as a database for all the corporate creditors and all the corporate debtors. Now corporate creditors are the banks and the other institutions which lend say credit or lend raw materials. Corporate debtors are those companies which owe loan to these corporate creditors. Now the provisions of the Insolvency Bankruptcy Code, we need to go very briefly here. The creditors can be of two types. Operational creditors are those who suppose say raw materials, who are say employees in your business. So say when you shut down the business, the raw material suppliers will be at a loss because they have already lent you some raw materials in advance that is lying in your inventory, right? So they need to claim it back. So they are also a stakeholder in this. Then employers. If you set up an ice cream shop and if you hire some staff and at the end of the month you say I am shutting down the business, so the employees, they need to be say also compensated not only for this month, because in principle they are being fired, so they need also say 1 month or 2 months of salaries. So they also become creditors in the IBC mechanism. So the government is not only trying to protect the business and the banks, but also the various crucial aspects of the business such as the employees and the raw material suppliers. Next, we also have the financial creditors. These are generally the banks. And in some cases, for example, say if you are aspiring to buy a new flat in say your own city or town or say in New Delhi here. Now say you are contacting a real estate agent for a property that is around say 10 lakh rupees. But the property is not built yet, right? You are already making an advance payment of say 5 lakhs, and when the property will be built, you are paying the rest of 5 lakh rupees, right? But the advance payment of 5 lakh that is going to the real estate developer, that will be acting as a loan to that developer in principle. So in these cases, the home buyers who are paying in advance of the real estate projects, they are also financial creditors according to latest provisions of the IBC. So not only banks, but these people of say home buyers, they are also under the IBC if they had made an advance payment in the same. Okay. Now, this IBC provisions applies to individuals, companies, partnerships who are doing business. But these provisions do not extend to the willful defaulters or say incapable defaulters who have said, say taken loan for say cars or say mobile phones, say EMIs. Those will be incapable defaulters or willful defaulters, and they will be pursued under the SARFAESI Act. They will be not under this because IBC mainly concerns about insolvency and bankruptcy, which can only take place in businesses. So businesses will be liable. Now here, when a business will be say declaring bankruptcy, then this insolvency professional agencies or IPAs, they will be coming with a plan. They will be presenting this plan. I mean, they will be say discussing with the companies, the banks, and they will be coming up to the plan whether they will be selling it, they will be liquidating the assets of the business, or what. They will be coming to a discussion. Now they will be planning the same and they will be presenting this plan to the National Corporate Law Tribunal. And this National Corporate Law Tribunal, based on the plan, they will be passing on the final verdict whether the plan should be adopted or not. So here, if the companies after this, say if the companies or say if the banks or say if the operation creditors, financial creditors, they are not happy with the NCLT judgment or say order, they can file an appeal. They can file an appeal in cases of individuals and partnerships. They can file an appeal to the debt recovery tribunals. In cases of companies, they can file the appeal to the NCLAT, which is nothing but just the National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. And under IBC, there are generally two processes just right now. First, we have the corporate insolvency resolution process, which follows the same process as we have discussed from the very beginning. It's the same, and we have to wrap up this process within a year or within 330 days legally. That means from the start of declaring bankruptcy by the company to making the plans by the IPAs and to the banks finally say adopting the plan or say liquidating the assets of the company, that must take within 330 days. That is legally mandated, and that is actually desired because as soon as you should dispose of the business owner can set up a new business. And also there is another pre-packaged insolvency resolution process, which essentially means that when a business is going to be sold, it is not good for the reputation of the business owner at some point of time, right? So this pre-packaged insolvency resolution process differs from the corporate insolvency resolution process, which is CIRP, and this is called PIRP. PIRP differs from CIRP in the notion that the total procedures will be initiated by the business owner here or say the corporate debtor, and they are at a freedom to choose their insolvency resolution plans, and this will take much less time than the CIRP. So these are the two methods which are different from each other, and the Indian government is also trying to expedite the same. But here, according to IBBI report of say data on cases of say March, total as of now we have 6,571 cases. Now we have these kind of issues. The issues are that around only 4,500 cases have been closed out of this. That means around 2,000 cases are pending. They are yet ongoing, right? Then of the closed ones, 45% ended in liquidation. Now let me tell you one very important thing in this IBC. Now liquidation means that the assets of the business are being sold off completely. That means the business is closed forever. Can we not assume or say can we not appreciate the fact that instead of closing the business, we can give a business to another business people, right, or business group or say any other agency who can continue the business with the same raw material suppliers, with the same employers and catering to the same customers. Can we not continue the ice cream business that was started by you, someone, and can I not buy your business and continue the same? This will keep the business running and keep the economy well oiled too. But here we have seen almost half of the businesses under IBC have been liquidated because it is very easy to do so, and it is very easy to it is very difficult to sustain the business in the long run, and this is one issue. because IBC do not want to say shut down the business. It is one of the last resorts, right? Okay. In resolution plans, the realization of creditors are very low. That means when you are liquidating the assets, the return that you get is very low from the loan that you have given earlier. So that is also a loss. And out of the total claims of around 9 lakh crore rupees, only 2.86 lakh crore have been realized. This is reflecting that around 30%, the realization have been this much. Then two-thirds of the cases cross 270-day deadline. 55% of the cases are going for more than 2 years, right? And also 4 applications are admitted under the PIRP as of say March 2023. Now here we have to understand that PIRP is a very personalized and customized mission plan for those business operations, but very few businesses are going for the same. Then outcomes have been less favorable for small players such as MSMEs, because they need more in-hand approach by the say financial experts, say the professionals and so on. Then also we have seen some insolvency professional agencies, some institutions, they are not well trained, they do not have enough human resources to operate the same. Okay, now the report that we cover under the crisis is that it is talking of some mixed emotions. First, the good things, that IBC has helped realize around 3.16 lakh crore as of now, according to around 808 cases in 7 years. The creditors have realized around 32%, as we have already seen, and around 169% of the liquidation value, because I told you it is very easy to liquidate earlier. Other mechanisms, that means through SARFAESI and other say short-term realization mechanism, the recovery rate is far lower than the IBC. So IBC is actually giving good returns apart from the other realization things. But there are some issues, again the same issues. The falling rate of recovery rates, for example, say from 43% to 32% between 2019 and 2023. That means the recovery by the creditors is becoming very difficult. Then there is increase in resolution time from around 324 days to 653 days versus the 330 days which is mandated, right? Next, we have to understand there are generally 2 reasons. The very first is that the NCLT and the NCLAT do not have enough strength of say the benches, and also there are delays in the pre-IBC admission stage, that is in the insolvency stage, that in the process of declaring bankruptcy there are some delays. Now apart from this, the government took some amendments in the last year, that is the approval of the assets of resolution plan on a segregated basis. This means, for example, say if I have that ice cream shop, and along with the ice cream shop I also open a new subsidiary that is selling waffles too, right? Now say my ice cream shop is in the loss, but under the ice cream shop I also have some waffle division which is profitable. So the government right now allowed to sell only the loss-making entity of a particular company while retaining the other one. If we are doing IBC, we will not be selling the entire one. We can be selling on a segregated basis. Now, also the another thing that the NCLT benches were increased to 16 to expedite the cases. Next, extending the timeline of filing claims by the banks and by the other creditors have been extended. Now some other reforms are needed. For example, say we need sector specific IBC reforms, such as say there are sectors like say apparel sector, technology sector, right, financial sector. So various sectors need different approaches, not one size fits all approach. And finally, we need to also do the audit of corporate debtor, because the audit operations will be giving early signs to the debtor also, and also to the banks also, that if the business is approaching insolvency or not, to track or say to catch the disease in the very first phase. So these are all the things that were important in this discussion. In the next one, we are talking about the recent shutdown of the Afghan embassy in Delhi. This is very important from GS2, where we need to talk about bilateral relations with other nations. Now, the very first significance that we need to discuss is about the strategic importance of Afghanistan, which is located on the periphery of Indian borders and also shares boundaries with Pakistan and Iran, and also on the periphery with the Central Asian region, where India is trying to get its roots in. Also, we have to understand the close proximity of Afghanistan with Pakistan and the growing influence of China in the region makes it very important for India to get in the game. Next, we need to look at some of the strategic ambitions of India in cases of infrastructure. That India is working on the Dilaram Jajan road project, right? We can understand that Dilaram is located in Afghanistan, Zahedan is located in Iran, right? And it is connected with the Gulf of Oman. So that India, through its coastline in the Gujarat and the Maharashtra region, they can have good connectivity with the Afghanistan region via this road. So the strategic ambitions of India are not only in paper but also in real life. So India is very, very significant about that. Next, when we are talking about energy security, India has this TAPI pipeline. TAPI stands for Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, India pipeline in the mission. Now, due to strained relations with Pakistan, this pipeline is effectively in principle not operating on the same lines, but India is also trying to reroute this pipeline via the Arabian Sea. But we have to understand this energy security aspect is very, very important for Afghanistan too, because Afghanistan is a resource deficient nation. It depends on its neighbors, especially India, to run its energy security needs. Next, the investments that India has, if we can look at these various aspects of, say, infrastructure, connectivity, economic development. Now, also in terms of, say, capacity building, India is almost present in everywhere in Afghanistan, be it dams, be it roadways, highways, bridges and schools, colleges. India is everywhere present in Afghanistan via investments. Around $20 billion of India's investments are there in the Afghanistan region. And also, the Afghanistani people appreciate India for the same thing. So it is also maintaining that goodwill of the Afghans too. Next, we have to understand, according to recent studies, there have been some excavations of minerals or, say, rare earth metals in Afghanistan that China is very eager to capture the same. So India must also try to diversify its mineral partnership with Afghanistan too in this matter. Next, we have to understand that the perennial race to counter China, and also here in the neighborhood to Pakistan also, because Pakistan, through Taliban in the very past, they have been involved in anti-India activities. So it is a very world significance for India to counter the same. And finally, the threats that arise from the Taliban and the Pakistan proxy from Afghanistan is also very important for internal security threat, particularly in the Jammu and Kashmir region of India. Okay, now the relations after the Afghan takeover by the Taliban took place in 2020-21 becomes very, very significant for us to understand here. India believes in zero tolerance for terrorism. That is well established. It also believes in the zero tolerance of illegal and, say, money laundering activities, especially involved in drug trafficking, human trafficking, non-democratic rule by the Taliban. And you have to understand that India do not support this and did not support it for ages and ages hence before 2020-21. But after the Taliban rose a prominent force or, say, political force in Afghanistan after 21, you have to understand India is also right now recognizing the same but not officially declaring its support for Taliban in the open forum. Next, India believes in one Afghan-led, Afghan-controlled and owned peace process, because India is always believing in democratic value, and in democratic value India finds its cultural and traditional roots too in the international arena. So India always supports an Afghan-led which is led by its own people, own elections, own democracy. But the thing is that the Taliban has gathered considerable force and it is also, say, spreading its influence internationally. And India is realizing that if it wants to engage with Afghanistan in 2023, it has to, because it has no other way, it has to engage through the Taliban. So that is one thing, or say reality, that India is waking up to. This is the hardcore reality, and that is why India is, say, not straight away denying Taliban, but it is adopting a gradual engagement in this matter. Because the embassy staff, embassy diplomats, they were appointed by the past leader of Afghanistan, Ashraf Ghani. So they remained loyal to that particular political dispensation. But now the times have changed in Afghanistan. In India, in New Delhi embassy, those anti-Taliban elements in Afghani embassies, they're not finding support. And also, because India is also looking at a gradual engagement, they are alleging that Indian government is also not supporting them. So it left no choice for them to shut down the embassy. So this is the latest development that took place. And next we have to understand, India is also investing heavily in the Chabahar port of Iran. And India also realized that the Afghani traders, before Taliban takeover, they were facing huge losses. So in this matter, because India is aspiring to be well connected with the Central Asia via Iran, along with keeping good relations with Iran, and also contributing to the INSTC, which we'll be discussing in the next one, it is very important that India's investments in Chabahar port also aligns India's interest with Afghanistan too. Next, India did not stop its humanitarian assistance. For example, the wheat diplomacy that India sends to Afghanistan time and again. And also, it has been seen that the wheat sent from India is far better of quality from the fake humanitarian assistance sent by China and also from Pakistan too. Next, we have to understand that Taliban is also now increasingly being in talks with China and Pakistan. So we need to also counter the same. The ongoing projects, as we have seen, that it was amounted to around, in these 2002 to 2021, it amounted to 4 billion. So this is another significance that India need to continue the same. Then India, or say Afghanistan right now, the Taliban right now in Afghanistan, they are reneging on the promises that they made in the Doha talks of 2020-21. The Taliban promised that if they would take over Afghanistan, they will be respecting human rights. But they are not doing the same right now. They are shutting down the women universities, banning women from public places. So this is also a cause of concern, because India do not support these activities. And if they are supporting the Taliban, they are indirectly also supporting this. So India must also keep in close consultations with Taliban on the same matter. But it is unlikely that the Taliban will yielding to the same. Now, the way ahead in this matter is that India must have this broader ambition of strategic imperative, as we have discussed also in the roadway network connecting Afghanistan via the Arabian Sea. Apart from this, India also have this international north-south transport corridor. As we can understand, it is connecting Mumbai via Iran, Azerbaijan, and also Russia to the Baltic, North Sea, right, and also opening out to the Atlantic Ocean. Generally, we have to understand that this is a very, very important route for India to operate, and that is why it is very, very important that Afghanistan, that is located here, they must be brought in close proximity with this network, and India must coerce the Taliban to the same. Then the investments that India has in Afghanistan is very, very important to protect, not only for the private individuals of India, but also for protecting the goodwill of the Afghani people too. Next, we have to understand that the condemnation of the female students ban that is going on in Afghanistan, that is also something that cannot be skipped by India, and let India not forget that history always, or say sometimes, repeats itself. So in the 1990s, when the Taliban were very aggressive and anti-India and providing impetus to terrorism, state-sponsored terrorism from Pakistan, we have to understand that right now the same thing can happen too. So Indian, or say New Delhi, must be very, very cautious while engaging with Taliban on the same thing, and it should not be in a hurry to do the same. It can take a gradual approach, because any hurried notion can be perceived as a sign of weakness by India's side. So India must be carefully balancing the same. Now, this is a very, very beautiful article from the Hindu that is talking about the various concepts of climate smart agriculture, right? And we have to understand this is very, very important for our syllabus, because time and again UPSC has been asking the questions from agriculture in GS3, and also sometimes combining the same with environmental aspects of conservation and pollution in agricultural dimensions in India. So let us look at this. See, let us discuss the various concepts in the very beginning. See, conventional agriculture refers to the use of, say, inputs like fertilizers, pesticides, and various other chemicals, right? It uses a lot of water. It uses irrigation techniques that are very degrading to the soil also. Now, this is very, very important for having a large amount of productivity of crops, right? Because this is a very intensive way of agriculture, because the farmers wants maximum amount of output for their inputs into the farming. Now, this have been found very, very polluting to the water, soil, and also we have to understand that the agricultural arena here in India and also rest of the world, especially the animal husbandry, especially the paddy cultivation, they release a lot of methane emission into the atmosphere. In addition, when we talk about the water degradation, we are seeing a lot of runaway chemicals into the water bodies, ponds nearby, causing eutrophications, right? We are also seeing traces of pesticides, traces of insecticides, fertilizers in water samples in states of, say, Punjab and Haryana. That means the water, drinking water there is contaminated. Then with reference to soil, large tracts of Punjab right now which practice this conventional agriculture, they are finding their lands are being desertified, or where they are losing their fertility. Now this is a very, very serious aspect for the commercial agriculture in India, because we have to understand that in face of population expansion, food security needs, and the dietary changes of the population, the conventional agricultural system cannot sustain the same on a continuing basis, because due to these various ill effects of Indian agriculture, the heavy reliance on chemicals and whatnot, it is totally degrading the overall landscape of Indian agriculture. And also, it is further predicted that in the near future, the productivity will decline, because if we do not have proper soils or fertile soils, right, it will be increasing the cost of the farmers, and also the productivity will be declining over a period of time. So we have to understand that the world needs to move on to a new breed of agriculture. Now the next best thing in this here is the precision agriculture. Precision agriculture refers to the use of data. Now this data can be collected using, say, various institutions, by the government, by the farmers themselves, and this data will be calculating how much exactly fertilizers are needed, how much the pesticides are needed, so that only in precise manner, in the most optimal manner, that we can apply these inputs in the farming sector. So that precision agriculture is very, very cautious with the amount of inputs that go into producing. Then when we combine the information technology aspects such as using drones, artificial intelligence, machine learning in agriculture, we also use the technologies of global positioning system to accurately measure the crop yield estimations. We enter the age of smart agriculture, which combines IT plus precision agriculture. The best kind of agricultural practice that we can get is the climate smart agriculture. This is the best, but yet the most traditional agriculture that was practiced by our ancestors. They use the natural use of, say, soil. They do not use to, say, till their land. They just use the natural way of cultivation, right? The various examples of climate smart agriculture is, say, cover cropping, is, say, using various amounts of organic fertilizers. It's also combining technologies such as say micro irrigation and so on. So this is making the agriculture very well attuned to the climate concerns of the day. Now when we again return back to the issues, the biggest issues are say water pollution, soil pollution, the amount of emissions, also the amount of say land expansion that is happening due to more and more population demand. We need to expand more and more lands by cutting down trees. That is a cause of concern. Overall, the governmental policies such as the MSP in India is favoring two kind of crops such as the rice and wheat system, which is very water intensive and uses a lot of chemicals and fertilizers. So these are all the issues that will be effectively solved by climate smart agriculture according to Food and Agricultural Organization. And here please do use these kind of definitions as introduction, citing the source also, the FAO 2029. It says that the climate smart agriculture is an approach for transforming food and agricultural systems to support sustainable development and safeguard food security under climate change. So this is totally comprising each and every terms that you need to define in this answer. And as I told that CSA or climate smart agriculture is a very sustainable way of looking at agriculture, mitigating the negative impacts of climate change. Now why? Because we have several benefits. The first benefit is that the CSA is an ecosystem based approach. Ecosystem based approach means in an ecosystem, in an farm, we have the soil, we have the air, we have the land, we have the water. These are the ecosystem. But apart from this, we also have the native plant species of the particular area of the particular farm. We also have pollinator species such as bees, and in case of some birds also. We also have various amount of habitat degradation that takes place due to commercial agriculture. This should not be done. So we have to understand that climate smart agriculture not only cares for their farmlands but also the overall ecosystem in that particular area, because each and every ecosystem is different based on their geographical location. So this is very important for us to understand here. Next, we have to understand the amount of agricultural output will no way be compromised by climate smart agriculture because it is using technology too. So let us adopt it, because if you can use technology with equal amount of output, it is good because it is also good for the ecological stability. Then we have to understand there are some new concepts of farmland carbon storage, because right now we have understanding that we have enough carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We need to take it back, or in the process that is known as carbon sequestration. Now farmlands all over the world, they give a very good opportunity of taking back the CO2 from the atmosphere. Even farmers in the US have started a new operation in which they are not growing say food crops. They are growing such crops that take in enough CO2 such that they can sell this taken CO2 to some companies which are willing to reduce their carbon emissions. So that companies will be trying with the farmers to say grow some crops which can take in atmospheric carbon dioxide. This is very good for the overall climate change aspects. Next, we also see that if we do climate smart agriculture, we can also boost agroforestry, which is a very good way to farm along with promotion of forest and say increasing amount of afforestation. Then the water management will be very efficient, because if we say use micro irrigation, that will be minimizing the amount of water loss. That can be also minimizing the amount of water runoff that goes onto the local lakes and ponds, hence preventing eutrophication, hence preventing the micro contamination of say leaking of pesticides and chemicals into nearby waters. Then also we have to understand that it will be leading to precision agriculture by using more and more data in Indian agriculture. Climate smart agriculture also promotes crop diversification, and crop diversification is the only answer to the intensive agricultural practices that operate in some of the states in India, such as wheat and rice system in Punjab, Haryana, Eastern UP. They can benefit from diversifying the crops from say rice and wheat to say millets, which are very climate smart too. Then we have various irrigation benefits. Apart from a recent study which you can use in your answers, the Northwest Indo-Gangetic Plain, they are having some site-specific no-tillage areas. That means the farmers do not generally till the ground. They do not till the ground, they do not disturb the soil ecosystem. They plant the seeds in the same manner, and it has been seen that this crop diversification, irrigation benefits, and the various amount of water management techniques have been successfully implemented. Then in various parts of the world such as Malawi, Indonesia, which adopted the climate smart agriculture, they saw a very dramatic change in the farmers' behaviors too. They, in their own communities, they were starting to spread information about the benefits of the climate smart agriculture. So the government have a very good initiative of introducing the scheme and letting the farmers promote the scheme too. So we have to understand that the three pillars of climate smart agriculture is first, sustainably increase the productivity of the crops along with being economically and ecologically sustainable. Then it is also to adopt and build resilience of the people, and finally it is also to reduce or totally eliminate the greenhouse gas emissions. So these are the three pillars, and the future outlook in this case that in India the crop yields are declining. Between 2010 and 2039, it can be as high as 9% due to climate change. So this is another report that is very important. Now we need a radical reform of the entire Indian agriculture, because it's very much dependent on the conventional agriculture. We have Indian government's various initiatives such as the National Action Plan on Climate Change, which is giving an overall aspect of climate change reforms in the solar industry, and also in agriculture. We also have the National Adaptation Fund for Climate Change, which is giving financial incentives for the businesses to adapt to climate change also. The farmers can do the same here. Then we are promoting natural farming such as organic farming, and also the natural farming that is being practiced in some of the states in form of Jeeb Amruta, Bij Amruta, Vapasa and mulching. So these are the four natural ways in which the soil is not disturbed. We are using cow dung, we are using microorganisms, we are using mulching as a process of natural farming, such as we are returning back to the traditional systems. Then we also have soil health card initiative that is measuring the amount of fertility of a soil, the suitability of a crop to a particular amount of soil and a particular geography, so that farmers can be well aware of the type of crops that they need to grow in a particular type of geography. Next, we have the Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which is looking at to modernize the amount of the scenario of irrigation schemes in India. Next, we are also looking at Paramparagat Krishi Vikas Yojana, which is trying to promote organic farming in India too. Next, the Biotech Kisan is combining the biotechnologically aspects of India and also promoting research and development in the agricultural field. The final scheme is about climate smart village, that Indian government is trying to promote that each and every village, they must be becoming climate smart by following these practices. But we have to understand that the precision farming is very important, which is not being seen in India as of now. So the government of the day should also promote the same. And at the end of the day, not only the farmers, not only the government, but also the private sector must be increasing their role in the particular activity. In the next one, we have two news that is from the Indian Explain page, which is very important for us to know. First is regarding NASA's spacecraft, which is firing a laser at Earth. And second is about the sickle cell anemia and the concept of CRISPR technology. This is very important for general science. Now let us look at the very first. See, the Psyche spacecraft is destined to be visiting the Mars and the Jupiter vacuum region, because there we have one critical asteroid which is having their core that resembles a very early planet. So NASA is saying that if we can send this Psyche probe to this asteroid, we can also know about the origins of our own core. Now this is very far away. That is why you have to understand that not only this mission, but also we are sending mission to Mars, moons, and also someday we will be sending ourselves to the space too, and say to faraway galaxies in the next 500, 600 years of humanity. That is why space communication is very important. And we have to understand, when you're talking about communication, we need to look at the electromagnetic spectrum, because the communication essentially occurs via this electromagnetic radiation that ranges from radio waves to gamma waves. And for your prelims, do pause this video to look at all the aspects of say this particular figure and diagram, because this has been asked by UPSC in the say case of say comparing radio waves with microwaves, if their wavelength is more or less, their applications. So please do note these small things, small basic things which we study from class 6 itself. So in UPSC actually it is very important to be well aware of the basic 6 first, then go on to the advanced things, because they are having this strong probability of coming in the prelims examination. Okay, and now also we can understand as and when we go on from say left to right, the energy of the waves also increases because the frequency increases over a period of time, right? Okay, now space communication is a very important aspect, because we have to understand when a probe or say spacecraft is in the space, they need to say transmit vast amount of data back to Earth, and they also need to maintain the latency, which is the time response of the signal and also the quality of the signal, right? And here the most amount of space technologies, they use radio waves for the communication because they are very large wavelength, and these help the astronauts and also the astrophysicists in the Earth to even penetrate buildings, forests, and say transmit the radio signals. Here the NASA's deep space optical communication uses the next version of this radio technology. That means they use this extremely precise pointing by using say ground antennas to the antennas that are present in the Psyche spacecraft. It is like tracking almost a coin in the sky. So they are using extremely precise observations here. That is why it is possible right now to fire a laser from Psyche to Earth, which is millions of kilometers away from the Earth, through the use of precise pointing technology. And that name is Deep Space Optical Communications. Here higher resolution pictures can be transmitted, large volumes of scientific data, and also stream HD videos. Now why this is very important? Say in the next 200 years, say that in the year of 2200, you are traveling from Earth to the next galaxy and you want to watch some Netflix video from the Earth. So you can stream HD quality videos from the Earth. This is just an example and also just a way of illustration that in the near future, human beings are aspiring to travel the entire space. It is very important to transmit large amount of data in this manner. The next is about the CRISPR breakthrough. Now let us understand CRISPR first. For example, say imagine this part of the DNA. This is a human DNA, for example, and this is one part of the DNA that you want to cut out, because this may be containing a genetic disorder, this may be containing a part of your say body or say mechanism which is undesired, so you want to cut it out. So CRISPR technology, this brings this Cas9 protein structure at the molecular level, cellular level. It cuts out this section and it replaces this section with a healthy version of cell, right? This means these are just molecular scissors that are cutting out the undesired sections of your DNA. Now why this is important right now, the regulators in the UK, they have approved the treatment of sickle cell anemia disease by CRISPR technology. Sickle cell anemia can be illustrated in this manner. It is a kind of disease that we can understand healthy hemoglobin in our red blood cells or in our bloodstream. They can help the binding of oxygen in an efficient manner so the body can utilize the oxygen. Actually, hemoglobin is that component. But in sickle cell anemia patient, the hemoglobin structure is not defined well. That is why they do not have proper oxygen binding capabilities. So these patients find themselves for wanting of oxygen, so say lack of oxygen. How this occurs? They generally occur, or say this is actually a rare genetic disease that parents transmit from themselves to their children. Generally it is very rare because we have to understand, say if this red one is the gene that contains the disease of sickle cell anemia, and this is a normal gene, and both of these genes are present in both of the parents. So the permutation and combination of the children's genes can be that one child can be having no sickle cell, that is perfectly healthy cells. One can be having one sickle cell, another also can be having one sickle cell. But the interesting part is here that if you even have one sickle cell gene, you will be not suffering from the same. You will be only suffering if you have both sickle cell anemia. And this is what this CRISPR is doing. It is just cutting that part of the sickle cell from your DNA, and it is implicating with the healthy DNA. And this is a very, very important thing, because India is also aspiring to do the same with respect to using CRISPR technology in broadstream media and also medical applications. In the final article, we are talking about a very beautiful case study. You can use this case study in almost all of your answers, especially in GS3 and also in ethics 2. In Sundarbans, we understand that we are facing a sea level rise or sea rise notion, where vast tracts of mangrove forest or say even a lot of coastline is being engulfed by the rising sea over a say decade or say 2 decades. That is why various civil society organizations, say various well-informed citizens, they are taking ways to preserve the mangrove forest there. Not only they are say protecting the local ecosystem, but also they are generating a new livelihood and also protecting the overall world atmospheric carbon dioxide emissions to help them getting sequestered. Okay, now let us understand the mangrove trees first. If you can look at these are the mangrove trees. Generally, the water levels are at this portion of the trees. So we can understand almost half of the trees are submerged in the delta regions of Sundarbans and also the areas of world where they have these mango trees. If you can understand, the mangrove trees are having leaves which have which are very well adapted to tolerating the salty conditions in the sea waters. And they have these prop roots, or they are also called breathing roots, because these roots are very, very much alive, right? And they take in also carbon dioxide from the atmosphere apart from the leaves too. Mangroves are generally halophytic or say salt loving trees, and the next version of the mangrove trees, that is their seeds, are actually dropped from the trees in this respect. They drop on the water and they grow from the water themselves. That means you do not need any soil to plant them. You just need to leave them on the sea water and they will be germinating by spreading out their roots into the water. And apart from the mangrove trees, it also sustains various amount of say fish. They also support sea grass bed, kelp, which are various other aquatic plants, and they create a fantastic ecosystem of say taking in the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. If we imagine the case of a simple land tree, it only can take the carbon dioxide from the leaves above. But here the mangroves are not only taking from the leaves but also from the roots, and also it is creating a very rich ecosystem that is sustaining a large amount of organisms. So they are taking in carbon dioxide in various versions of the crust, right? So we have to understand that these are very, very good blue carbon sinks, or blue carbon sink refers to those carbon sinks or those areas in our earth which can take in the sequestered carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, and they can store it in seas or in oceans for a long period of time without disturbing it. So we have to understand that people in Sundarbans are taking very good initiatives, especially women who are planting more and more mangrove roots by collecting the seedlings that they are getting from the far away distant mangrove forest in the ocean. So let this be a case study that can be used in your mains answers. So this was all for today. I thank you all for being a very, very patient audience. Till then, thank you. Keep watching. All the best.